Good evening, everyone. This is Sister Yaffa. I want to thank you in advance for tuning in to hear a little bit of what I'm going to share with you this evening. Okay, a lot of feedback in the background. It would be very helpful if whoever that is could hit mute on their phone, please.
Did you load the dishwasher?
Whoever's talking about loading dishwashers, it would be lovely if you would hit mute, because that's at least a little bit distracting for me. I don't know about anyone else. Thank you for tuning in, as I was saying a moment ago. I'm going to have to revisit a little bit of where I was the last time, because I'm trying to tie it together. In order to resuscitate the American empire, one has to first go back and determine what's going on, how, what the problem is, and what went wrong and what is wrong today. Now, in order for us to do that, I have to revisit some things from the past. And people are always wondering why we focus so much on the past. Those that do not learn the history of their past are doomed and destined to repeat it. And my thing is, you're not going to get anywhere into a future because you're going to be stuck revolving in circles as opposed to evolving to a new awakening and a new rising. Now, I didn't get an opportunity to really hear the show as well as I would like to do from last week, so therefore I'm not as up on what all I said as I would like to be. So if you hear me repeating, please just be patient and bear with me a little bit. When I covered last week's show, I do recall discussing the Roman state and how it evolved from a bunch of little factions of families that eventually coalesced by blood into a incest bloodline that created a state of its own. But they're not the only ones. There are several different factions of inbreeding that have been going on and continue to go on. Now, people can do what they want to do. I try not to be judgmental. The only problem that I have with people, as I said again, if you want to marry your sister's son, or you want to marry your brother's daughter, or if you want to marry your own sister, as long as everybody's an adult and you agree to that, that kind of is your affair. You have to take that up with your own creator. My problem is the things that are being done to the children. And there was a prime example of this Holocaustic ritual that I was telling everyone about that took place, I want to say Florida. I'm not sure how many people have heard about the set of 10-year-old twins that were tortured and tormented by their so-called adoptive father. Like I've said before, when I tell people of these individuals that are outside of what everybody keeps calling race, which is really not a race, that keep adopting our children, they're not adopting our children because they like us like that. If you don't like a particular people for whatever your reasons are, you couldn't possibly have the best interest in heart when it comes to their children. So my thing is, if there's a way to stop these sisters, mine included, from delivering these children and handing them over to a very problematic system, and it's not just ours. The truth of the matter is, I don't think any child of any ethnic stock or so-called race or would-be nationality is safe in the hands of these people. The fact of the matter is that their own children are not safe in their hands, because if they were, then no one would attempt to subject their own children to sodomy, rape, and molestation starting from very, very small. If you do that to your own children, then other people of the world should not expect anything along the lines of splendid treatment from you in regards to their children, because you don't yet know how to treat your own. These are individuals who will rape a child, beat a child to non-existence, and the whole time be quoting scripture at them while they're doing these heinous things to them, talking about the Lord God and thumping Bible verbiage at them. Now, I understand thoroughly that that is not all the people that are into the Bible, and it's certainly not all of the Christians. But this little 10-year-old set of twins, the guy that adopted them, even though I haven't seen any photographs of him, of course I didn't look for any, he's apparently out of the race. The little girl's name is Nubia. So that tells me a lot about what ethnic stock she's coming from. But they found these two babies. The adoptive father was on the ground not far from the car, claiming, not dead, but claiming that he had poured gasoline on himself and set himself on fire in an attempt to commit suicide. And my thing is, if you're really trying to commit suicide, you could have been a bit more effective, but you really weren't trying to commit suicide. You're trying to start something. You're trying to incite something from someone. When the paramedics and aide came to help the child that was inside of the truck, he had very caustic chemicals of some type that had been poured on him, and he was damaged, particularly from the waist down. Now, he was oozing and dripping with so much toxic, caustic chemical that the people that came to be of help to him found themselves going into sickness just trying to be there and offer up some level of support. It took hours later because the truck, which was some sort of an extermination truck, was so loaded with some sort of thing that it required bringing in hazmat teams that were fully suited and booted just to get anywhere near this thing. It involved shutting down a freeway for several hours. Now, the little girl, it took them hours later to even realize she was in the car. She also had been somehow totally damaged from the waist down. She was wrapped in plastic and stashed in the back of the truck in between canisters of caustic, toxic chemical. It took a while for them to even find her. She was already dead. Her brother, her twin, who is 10, is currently being held, I guess, in critical condition in some hospital. Honestly, I'm glad the baby girl is dead. I wish the boy was dead. I know that sounds very cold, but I would prefer that these sisters that keep, these crackhead mothers, like I said, my sister's one of them, that keeps having these children and letting the system take them away because, after all, they don't want to give them to our children, like someone brought to my attention, Brother Seer, Duke of Tears, and his consort, or his mate, I hate this word mate, his empress, went and made an effort to adopt a Haitian child. Now here you have a stable family that lives together. They're nuclear. They have children. They're obviously moving in an appropriate direction. They were denied the option of adopting a child that looks like them as a couple, where this same child, from what I've been told, was adopted by a crackhead female European yoga instructor. Well, I don't understand what's going on, even though I do understand what's going on, but if we can't do better as a people, then some of these people need to just call it a day and just stop living. Because when you bring people to the world, if you can't do better by them, I'm talking about these mothers, then you should stop having children. And everyone has told my sister to stop, and it's to no avail. But honestly, I almost would prefer that the children are taken out at birth or before birth or whatever than to have them be born and then suffer the type of treatment and torment that these children suffered. Now, my thinking is for this child, both of these children, to be so thoroughly damaged, particularly from the waist down, someone was trying to hide something and cover something up. Now, it may look like the genitals are so destroyed. I wouldn't be surprised if they've been removed and eaten and consumed or collected for future use. I would submit that these children have probably been abused sexually as well as physically, mentally, and emotionally, particularly since they were wrapped up in duct tape in a bathtub for hours on end, and the little girl for all day at a time. Now, the last name of this family that adopted them is Barahona, B-A-R, that's B like boy, A-R-A, H like happy, O-N-A, for those of you that have not heard about this story. The husband's name is Jorge, and the woman's name is Carmen, and I wouldn't be surprised, no matter what they look like or what they're calling themselves, if they are a part of this crew that I'm going to be discussing this evening. Now, the reason I'm giving you the names is so you can look into it. He probably, as a matter of fact, what really troubles me more than that is I don't even think that this cat has been charged with murder for the daughter or for the little girl that's no longer with us, or attempted murder for the little boy, but I think he's gotten some sort of bogus charge along the lines of child endangerment or some ridiculous nonsense like this. But I'm saying all that to say, most of the people that commit these types of things are very devout religious people in some religious sect or other, be it Christianity, Islamism of some sort, or Judaism of some sort. And I'm going to focus on the three primary religions because they're really all the same religious game going on in my personal estimation based on all of my research. I'm going to say that from what I've gathered, Christianity was first, not Judaism, like people say, oh, it was so ancient and so old. It's a relatively newer thing, but it's really the same thing. Even Islamism, as we're knowing it, is a spin-off of Christianity. But these very devout, so-called holier-than-thou, so-called religious people need to be called to the carpet, and I'm going to call them to the carpet doing what I do best, and I'm going to just use words. The word cross is synonymous with the word cruise. You know, like someone's going on what do you call these, boat cruise, or the police are cruising through your neighborhood. Cruise. The word cruise and cross, and I think I've given you this before, means to sail back and forth, going to and fro for plundering. Now, those of you that are into your holy Bibles and your holy scriptures, if you buy this book, then you need to follow what you're looking at and follow what you're reading. Unless I'm mistaken, it says somewhere in there something about Satan going to and fro, committing damage around the planet. Now, in this definition of cruise, and I don't recall, I'm going to give you one of the three books that I would have pulled it from. It would have either been from my Random House College Dictionary, or it would have come out of my 1828 Webster's Dictionary, or I would have pulled it out of my Columbia Encyclopedia. And just let me look in here real quick so I can tell you what year it is. And give me a minute. When I'm done with that, I'll give you the year of my Random House, because I'm getting a little frustrated with people telling me, you know, you're always giving people information and you don't tell people where you're getting it. And when people ask, you're always saying you don't remember. You have to understand how I do my research. I wouldn't remember. Okay, it looks to me like my Columbia Encyclopedia is a second edition from 1956. Let me just look at my Random House College Dictionary very quickly so I can give you the year so that you can go, because I'm tired of people thinking I'm making this stuff up. I have better things to do than make this stuff up. The only reason I'm even out sharing it with the people at all is because I found things that are so deep and profound, and I find them based on my research for me that I do for myself. Once I see it, I am not required for myself to remember who wrote the book, what year, what the title was. I've seen it. It's in there. I know for a fact something is true once I see it, and I go and verify and validate that it's accurate or not. Now, my Random House College Dictionary is the 1968 edition. My sister has a better edition than mine. I just can't recall what year hers is from. But going back to cross, in the parentheses, and I had to look because I didn't, when I took my notes, as usually is the case when I take my notes, I did not make a note of which book it came from. I do make notes when I pull from the Strong's Exhaustive Concordance because I want to know if this was Greek word or Hebrew word and follow my trail and train of words. But in the parentheses it said, see cross, and it says a cross is a crux. When I looked at cross, I found that cross meant crux, which is spelled C-R-U-X like X-ray. A crux is anything that puzzles and vexes. Now, when Cruz said going to and fro for plundering, I'm the type of individual, I don't want to assume that I know what is meant by plundering, so I will go and look up this word so I comprehend what they're trying to tell me when they give me the word. When I looked it up, plunder meant to spoil, pillage, to take by pillage or open force, to rob as a thief, and to strip. So I'm like, okay, let me look up pillage. I don't want to assume that I know what they mean by pillage as much as I think I know what a word means. I never knew that the word nice meant stupid until I looked it up, so I don't take it for granted when it comes to these words. Pillage meant to strip of money or goods by open violence. Pillaging is usually the act of bands and numbers, whereas robbery is committed by one individual or another, and stealing is not open force. So pillaging is stealing and it's robbery, but it is open as opposed to being hidden, and it is with violence done by a group or a band or a marauding compact that you can sort of see coming. So that took me to the Strong's Exhaustive Concordance. And I looked in there for the word cross. The word cross was in the concordance as the Greek word number 4716, which is spelled in Greek stauros, S-T-A-U-R-O-S. And it said a lot of things, but again, I get to the meat and potatoes. What I pulled out is that it said cross meant exposure to death. Exposure to death. That's for all of you that are bent on wearing these around your neck in platinum and gold and silver, rimming with diamonds. You need to know what you're wearing, and you need to know what you're doing. As I always say, know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Know what you're saying and why you're saying it. If you're going to wear this thing and promote this behavior, know what it is that you're promoting. Now, in the Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, when they said death, it said I-E, which means that is. Or another way of saying that is by that we mean, or that is to say. So death, by that they mean self-denial. Our people have become masters of self-denial. Unfortunately, many people have become masters of self-denial. Now, by not being in self-denial does not mean that you just go out and just have your way and do your will, never mind, or whoever's in the way, to them be damned. That's not the case, because you're supposed to do what you want to do, but you're not supposed to do it if it involves damaging or harming someone else. Now, the reason I'm bringing this stuff up is because the other day I gave you guys information, and when I went to, I have to buy some 3x5 cards because I'm out of state right now, so I don't have any with me, and I'm much more organized when I do a presentation if I just have notes on a 3x5 card as opposed to rifling through pieces of paper. That has never been a good way for me to try to do a presentation because I had these things in order, and as soon as I leaned forward to get these dictionaries up to give you the dates on these books, all my papers scattered to the floor, and now everything is out of order, so it's going to be a little bit rough. Here's what I wanted to go into next. I don't think it's all in order still, but at least I found the next thing. I was talking last week about the Roman Catholic Church, and I have to go back in order to bring you forward. Now, everybody's heard this term, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, that they use all the time, and people have been wondering for the longest what that is. Now, I know things are in multiple layers. I don't want to hear people talking about, oh, well, spiritually that means, and, you know, that's all just that, and that just depends on which level you're reading at. I'm giving it to people on the level that they're coming from right now. If you're beyond what I'm talking about, you may want to find something a tad bit higher in evolution to listen to besides me. When they say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, or the Holy Spirit, they are talking about Jupiter as the Father, which is the God of the heavens and the weather, which is another way of saying Zeus or Jesus. They're talking about Mars, the son of Jupiter, which is the god of war, also known as the Greek Ares, and they're talking, now that's the Father and the Son. Jupiter the Father, Mars the Son. The Holy Ghost, or Holy Spirit, is the Roman Catholic Church itself, and it is known by the term Quirinus, which I think I gave you guys last week, but I may have said it too fast or didn't spell it out for you so you could go look it up for yourself. It's spelled Q like quality, U-I-R-I, N like never, U-S, Quirinus. And I could be pronouncing it wrong, but Quirinus is the god of war, Romulus, Rome itself. Now keep in mind, if Jupiter is the father, and he's the father of Mars, Mars is the son, and Mars is the father of Romulus and Remus, or Rome, that helps you to comprehend who and what Quirinus is, which is the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit. And again, we're looking at a situation where there are no women involved because we're dealing with entities that are totally, what is the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word, but haters, misogynistic. That's the word. They're totally anti-female. And anything that can be done to use her, abuse her, discard her, whatever age she may be, whatever ethnic stock she may be, that's what they do. And isn't it interesting that these anti-females, going back to the children I was talking to you about earlier, the set of twins, the girl is dead. The baby boy probably wishes that he was, okay? These people are on some whole other nonsense when it comes to females. And I think that these children were damaged from the waist down to hide evidence. Stand by 1 second. Somebody's, oh, okay. Where was I? Okay. Just so you know for the record, Jupiter, Mars, and Quirinus are, or were, and if they were, they probably still are, the supreme triad, not Trinity, triad of Rome. And I keep telling people to get out of the Trinity, because a Trinity is three that are not one, because NIT is the same as NOT, three that are not one. So these three males are one thing, okay? And it goes back into that having incestual relations with your male and female children that a lot of people are not aware of. Now, I'm not saying that that's exactly what everybody that's a Christian is about today. I'm saying this is what your stuff comes from. And we are all needing enlightenment on where a lot of these things came from and how a lot of this stuff starts. Now, the Roman Catholic Church is considered the head. Cephal, or Cephas, meaning head. Peter, the rock, is also Simon Peter, the head. He was also known as Cephas, okay? Now, when you get into knowing who and what was going on, I did some additional research, and I'm hoping I can find it with my papers scattered everywhere. And just bear with me while I try to look at these, because I don't like to give things off the top of my head because I may misquote something. But I will try to give you what I can from memory. There was a guy named Peter that was a part of a major family that ties into the Roman Catholic family, the church, and that whole agenda that our people need to get some clarity about. Now, hold on, because I'm looking at political things, because I'm going from here and I'm going to come up into some of modern-day politics, and I'm looking at current presidents, so this thing is completely out of order. Bear with me. Absolve me for not being a bit more organized, but I have to actually go out and get some of these cards I'm talking about because they're just easier for me to have a handle on, because the only thing I use these things for is like dates and names, because that's the stuff that I tend to forget, the little specifics. People are like, well, who was that, and when was that, and where was that? And I'm like, I'm a big picture person. I'm trying to give you the big picture, but there are a lot of people that want to pull me apart for details, and I am not the one that's into all the minutia of details. But like my sister, my aunt always says, well, sis, the devil is in the details. Well, the devil is in the details, and I'm going to tell you now, the devil is all over the details. So I'm trying to give you details, and in order for me to do that, I need to be able to pull them up.
Yaffa.
Yeah, go to break for a second. Thanks. Or were you going to ask me something else?
Someone asked in the chat, what's the difference between the cross and the crucifix?
The cross and the crucifix are one and the same things, but, you know, cross is about crucifying, and the crucifix is about crucifying, and crucifying is about torture. Passion is about suffering. People need to understand what words mean. The cross means to crucify and to bring death and harm and destruction. Passion, like people are having sex and what they think are the throes of passion, passion means to suffer. And a lot of people don't comprehend how to read overstanding allegory or comprehending semantics. Some of these knuckleheads are taking this nonsense totally literally because they are just not with it. They have yet to grow up and evolve. Not you guys, the listeners, unless some of the listeners are into this nonsense. I don't know who's listening to me. But a crucifix is the shape of a cross, and I've told you guys before, the letter T was the emblem that was supposed to be the mark of a thief. Prior to the Capitol being in Washington, D.C., when it was in the province of Pennsylvania, those individuals, you know, there was a law that was passed, and you can go to my website at yaffabay.com and look in the dictionary pages to get this information, because, again, that was some years ago, and once I get past the point, I'm kind of past it, and I tend to forget it. But from memory, the individuals that were convicted of stealing or accused and convicted of being a thief were required to wear the letter T because they were thieves. And a lot of the people today run around wearing these letter T's as crosses. That information came out of, I'm pretty sure it came out of the Black's Law Dictionary. I'm just not sure if it was the 5th or 6th edition. But I perceive if you look in your Black's Law Dictionary for the letter T, that's what you will find. Okay, do me a favor. Can you go to music for a second while I try to get this mess in order so I can keep up? Thank you.
No problem.
Good evening, everyone. This is Sister Yaffa. I want to thank you in advance for tuning in to hear a little bit of what I'm going to share with you this evening. Okay. A lot of feedback in the background. It would be very helpful if whoever that is could hit mute on their phone, please.
Did you load the dishwasher?
Whoever's talking about loading dishwashers, it would be lovely if you would hit mute, because that's at least a little bit distracting for me. I don't know about anyone else. Thank you for tuning in. As I was saying a moment ago, I'm going to have to revisit a little bit of where I was the last time because I'm trying to tie it together. In order to resuscitate the American empire, one has to first go back and determine what's going on, how, what the problem is and what went wrong and what is wrong today. Now, in order for us to do that, I have to revisit some things from the past. And people are always wondering why we focus so much on the past. Those that do not learn the history of their past are doomed and destined to repeat it. And my thing is, you're not going to get anywhere into a future because you're going to be stuck revolving in circles as opposed to evolving to a new awakening and a new rising. Now, I didn't get an opportunity to really hear the show as well as I would like to do from last week, so therefore I'm not as up on what all I said as I would like to be. So if you hear me repeating, please just be patient and bear with me a little bit. When I covered last week's show, I do recall discussing the Roman state and how it evolved from a bunch of little factions of families that eventually coalesced by blood into a incest bloodline that created a state of its own. But they're not the only ones. There are several different factions of inbreeding that have been going on and continue to go on. Now, people can do what they want to do. I try not to be judgmental. The only problem that I have with people, as I said again, if you want to marry your sister's son, or you want to marry your brother's daughter, or if you want to marry your own sister, as long as everybody's an adult and you agree to that, that kind of is your affair. You have to take that up with your own creator. My problem is the things that are being done to the children. And there was a prime example of this Holocaustic ritual that I was telling everyone about that took place, I want to say Florida. I'm not sure how many people have heard about the set of 10-year-old twins that were tortured and tormented by their so-called adoptive father. Like I've said before, when I tell people of these individuals that are outside of the what everybody keeps calling race, which is really not a race, that keep adopting our children, they're not adopting our children because they like us like that. If you don't like a particular people for whatever your reasons are, you couldn't possibly have the best interest in heart when it comes to their children. So my thing is, if there's a way to stop these sisters, mine included, from delivering these children and handing them over to a very problematic system, and it's not just ours. The truth of the matter is, I don't think any child of any ethnic stock or so-called race or would-be nationality is safe in the hands of these people. The fact of the matter is that their own children are not safe in their hands, because if they were, then no one would attempt to subject their own children to sodomy, rape, and molestation, starting from very, very small. If you do that to your own children, then other people of the world should not expect anything along the lines of splendid treatment from you in regards to their children, because you don't yet know how to treat your own. These are individuals who will rape a child, beat a child to non-existence, and the whole time be quoting scripture at them while they're doing these heinous things to them, talking about the Lord God and thumping Bible verbiage at them. Now, I understand thoroughly that that is not all the people that are into the Bible, and it's certainly not all of the Christians. But this little 10-year-old set of twins, this is true, and how much of this is fiction, because that's what they do, try to take fiction and make it truth, and take truth and make it fiction. but there was a priest named Mattathias who opposed the Hellenistic, so-called Greek, tendencies of the Syrian ruler Antiochus the fourth, Antiochus the fourth. Now, when he says Hellenizing tendencies, I get the impression he's saying that they were attempting to bring certain behaviors onto the people from foreign peoples, I'm assuming, but I can't know for sure. I'm going to continue to look into that. But Mattathias became frustrated, and he stripped and desecrated the temple in the 70s, which is interesting because the word is that the word is that Rome destroyed the temple. So I'm getting a little confused on that. I got to get more clarity about it. But just because I need to get my clarity doesn't mean I should wait before I put it out there, because there's some people out there that already know and they just need this piece. The reason he did this is because he refused to take part in a pagan sacrifice, and he killed a Jew who did take part in a sacrifice. Then he killed the royal enforcing officer, after which he and his 5 sons fled off into the mountains. And from there, they would periodically come down and run guerrilla warfare type sieges, and they became very effective at that. When he died, his son Judas Maccabeus, Judas, took on the leadership. Syria sent out people to destroy Judas, to no avail, because Judas wound up overcoming Syria. He wound up occupying Jerusalem, and he rededicated the temple. This is interesting. After his father sacks the temple, he rededicates the temple. So I'm saying all this because I'm trying to bring you to a point of something that I think I see. Judas occupied Jerusalem, and he rededicated the temple. And this feast that they celebrate called Hanukkah is the result of that. Hanukkah is celebrated about this restoration and rededication of this temple. Now, when Judas was killed, his brother Jonathan became the leader. Now, these are the Maccabees that I'm talking about. He supported Alexander Balas, B-A-L-A-S, and I'm wondering if that is one and the same Alexander as Alexander, their so-called Alexander the Great. I don't know enough about it yet to say yes or no, but there's somebody out there that they know what this is. Once he supported Alexander, Judas that is, he supported Alexander and made treaties of friendship with Sparta and Rome. When he was killed, the last brother, Simon, and I submit to you this is most likely one and the same Simon as Simon Peter that they talk about, that was Cephas, that the whole Roman Catholic Church is supposed to be dedicated to. This cat that was supposed to be buried there and hung upside down, or whatever the case, crucified upside down. I'm pretty sure it's the same dude. But when Judas died, his brother Simon became the successor. Simon was classified the high priest of Palestine. And we're talking the same Palestine over there that everybody's fighting about today overseas, that is flying the blue flag with the 6-pointed star, which is nothing more than the star of the house of Rothschild. The same star used to be red, and now it is the house of Rothschild that they're flying this star for. Now, Simon was murdered by his own son-in-law, after which time his son John Hyrcanus, which is spelled Hyrcanus, the first, succeeded him and took over. Now, don't get him confused with the other John Hyrcanus, the second, which is his grandson, because this John Hyrcanus ruled from 135 BC to 105 BC. Now comprehend, when you're talking about calendar dating in the BCs, they count backward. So in our current calendar, what is the AD calendar, you would go from the year 2000 to 2001, 2002, 2003, until you bring yourself up to now where we are at 2011. Whereas in the BC calendar, if you want to get to where we are in 2011, the calendar is going backward. So it would go from, say, 2015 to 2014, 2013, 2011, and I submit that that is to create and cause all kinds of confusion so that people can't really get a finger on what's going on here. So when I say he ruled from 135 BC to 105 BC, comprehend that in the BC calendar, the clock is ticking in a backward direction to move forward, which makes sense because we're dealing with a very backward people. Now, he, John Hyrcanus I, was succeeded by his son Aristobulus, which is spelled Aristobulus the first, who was succeeded by another son named Alexander Jannaeus. And I may not be pronouncing that right, but Alexander's last name is J like January, A, N like Nevada, N like Nevada, A-E-U-S. Now, Alexander Jannaeus headed the Sadducees in their strife with the Pharisees. Now, the Pharisees and the Sadducees are all different factions or sects of what you guys keep calling Jewish stock. And I'm going to get to you with that in a little bit. I'm going to clarify that for you in a minute. But when he died, Alexander Jannaeus, when he died, his widow, Salome Alexandra, which is spelled S like Sam, A-L-O-M-E, became queen. Now, Salome Alexandra was also the widow of his brother. So he married his brother's wife, his brother Aristobulus. When Aristobulus died at some point, Alexander wound up with his woman. She favored the Pharisees, which is, contradictory to Alexander, who was heading the Sadducees. When he died, her son, when she died, because, at this point she's a widow queen. When she died, her son, John Hyrcanus II, became the high priest of Palestine. He became the ruler, and when this took place, his brother, Aristobulus II, he launched a revolt about it. Now, this caused a civil war to break out, and the result of this civil war in Palestine prompted Rome to intervene, and Pompey took Jerusalem because Rome had to intervene in this civil war between the Pharisees and the so-called Sadducees. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because if you comprehend that the Roman Catholic Church is, by all intent and purposes, for the purposes of visual aid, those that look out and see what they think they see, they feel that the Roman Catholic Church is ruling everything. And they are ruling everything. The Pope and the Church have become the Father and the Lords of the whole world. But people have to comprehend who is lording over them. That's what we're dealing with right now. We're dealing with a people or entities that are on some other shit, for lack of better words. They're on some whole other crazy, and we need to figure this out, and we need to figure this out quickly, because if we do not wake up about it very, very quickly, we're all doomed. I don't care what your color is, what your race is, what your ethnicity is, what your nationality is. Even if you are what they consider a so-called Jew, you could be in trouble, because if you are not a part of the immediate inbred bloodline of this very small faction of families that repeatedly marry their own, their brothers' daughters and their brothers' sons and this kind of nonsense, and their sisters' sons and their sisters' if you don't comprehend how close they're trying to keep this blood thing that they're doing, then you're not going to get it. And one of the things that they're doing, this inbred bloodline that is ruling over the Roman Catholic Church by being what they call crypto-Jews, or so-called Jews that pretend that they're not. And for all intents and purposes, when the world looks at them, they don't see a Jew. For example, when you look at, what was this guy's name? What is the name of that talk show host that had gotten his nose broken on his show one day when somebody accidentally hit him, not Jerry Springer, Geraldo Rivera. For all intents and purposes, the world perceives that Geraldo Rivera was Spanish or some sort of Latin, Mexican, or something to this effect. He is not. He is, for lack of better words, what people call a Jew. And they are not Jews, but do lie. They're Judesses. They're Judas, not Jew. The whole objective is that the people that I'm attempting to point out to you right now are misruling the world. I'm going to show you how they are doing it. If anybody's ever heard of King William the Conqueror of England, who is also by some known as King Billy or King William of Orange, he came from Holland. He's Dutch. He came from Holland as a prince and entered into England, and when he arrived, he came with a swarm of what is currently identified as Jews. He came with a host, or a Jew army, for lack of better words. And this prompted his father-in-law, his wife's father, King James, who happened to be the king at the time, to abdicate. And he wound up taking over the throne of his wife's father. Now, not King, is it King James? Yeah, I'm thinking it is King, I think it's King James first, but let me just make sure of that before I quote it. Does anybody have a question about any of that so far, sis, out there, where I keep rambling on? Okay, I'll take that as a note. Now is as good a time as any to ask, because I'm shuffling through these papers again. Yeah, I think some of the papers, I wasn't able to gather them all, even though I did gather up many of them. I think some of them sort of blew away across the room because they're not all here.
Somebody asked were these Khazars?
Khazars?
Yeah, Khazars.
Khazars. The Khazars or Caesars or I heard you. The Khazars, which are also known as Caesars and Caesars, you know, are there two C's? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. What you call the Kaisers or Caesars or Ashkenaz, so-called type of Jew. But King Edward I, when he was the king of England, he had passed an edict of expulsion that forever banned Jews from entering into England. King Charles I was executed for treason, and what is this guy's name? It's going to have to come to me. There's a guy who was very instrumental in seeing to it that the king was murdered, and I submit to you, his name was Oliver Cromwell. I submit to you that Oliver Cromwell was probably a so-called Jew. But see, people don't see them coming because, for all intents and purposes, depending on who you're looking at, some of them look like what you call white people. Some of them look like what you call mixed breeds or half-breeds. Some of them look like what you call Spanish or Mexican. Some of them look like what you call Arab. So they can go around the world basically and fit into almost any group of people and look like they're a part of the people when they're there for their own agenda and they're working for the people that are above them. But he needs to comprehend, or she, that Kaisers are not Semites. The Kaisers are Asiatic Mongoloid nation. I think they're more Turco-Fin, but these individuals have come around and they've gotten into people's bloodlines because, remember, they are they practice endogamy. They only marry within. They only marry their own blood. And if they marry outside of their family, their immediate family, meaning if you are not their niece, nephew, sister, brother, mother, father, cousin, they will not marry you unless marrying you is going to somehow marry them up, either in economic status and wealth, kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger married up into the, what do you call these, the Kennedy family for wealth. They marry out of their immediate family only to tap into a particular bloodline so they can attach their blood to a thing by blood, or so that they can acquire some sort of wealth, status, or position. That is the only time they get into exogamy, which is to marry outside of their immediate bloodline. That's the only time they step away from tribalism and practicing that which makes one a tribe, which comes from, it was the Hebrew, I think it's Hebrew in the Strong's Exhaustive Concordance. I'm pretty sure I gave that to you guys last week, but bear with me a second. I can give it to you again as soon as I spot it. It's the Hebrew word Ammon, which is spelled Ammown, and it means tribe, which means inbred through incest. And it says that in the Strong's Exhaustive Concordance. Let me just see if I can find it real quickly here so that I can make sure I quote you the accurate information as opposed to going off the top of my head. See, when I try to do specifics, that's when I get delayed and screwed up, as opposed to just giving people big picture so they can go find it. I try to connect the dots so that people can see what I'm saying and find it for themselves. I don't see it at the moment. When I find it, I'll give it to you at that point in time. Okay. Anyway, King William III, which is also known as King William of Orange or King Billy by some, he married his cousin. Anne Hyde was his own cousin. And when he came into England, he was the Prince of Orange, and his wife's father, King James, was the king at the time, and that was King James II. Okay, so King James II, one of the reasons that Prince William was brought into this picture is because approximately 33 years after Oliver Cromwell was able to convince the Parliament of Britain to execute the king, which was King Charles I, on charges of treason, not long after that, 33 years after that, King William came in and he brought all these so-called Jews with him. And he allowed the Ashkenaz to come back into England, although the edict was still on the books that they were not to be there and they were not allowed there. And I'm telling you, they are running that shit now. Now, this edict that I was talking about, like I said before, took place in 1290, and it was forever. He arrived in 1688. The Jews that he brought with him were from Holland's financial center, and he kind of drove his father, King James II, out of the kingdom. And I forget where his father-in-law went. He went somewhere else because he had to split. But King William came in, and he was kind of like the downfall of England, or the English people, for lack of better words. He started Protestantism or Protestantism. I don't know how the hell you say it. This whole thing called the Protestant Church. King William was very instrumental in inciting that stuff, and the main reason that they came in is because King James II, he was appointing Catholics into positions of power, and the English people had a major problem with it at the time. He arrested a lot of the bishops that were in England because they refused to proclaim Catholicism as the faith. So what they did is they abandoned Anglicanism and they embraced Protestantism, and I'm sure that's not correct, but this is what they had to do, and the British Parliament made sure that his son and heir, King William, was not able to take over or get hold of anything. But one of the things that they did, these people that have gotten into England now, that also are the controllers of the Vatican treasure, these Ashkenaz, these are the same people who prompt England's, what was that? Are we still on the air?
Yes, we are. We're still on the air.
Oh, I thought I got disconnected. My bad. These are the same people that prompted, they always prompt the English crown to do what they want. They have strategically placed themselves in high positions of power in England. They have strategically placed themselves in high positions of power in Rome. They have strategically placed themselves in high positions of power in the so-called United States government. And these people are very much about the promotion of a demonocracy, which people always call democracy, because if they call it what it is, people would step away from it. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of words that are very important out of the 1828 dictionary. Everybody has heard of the Holy Bible. Well, I'm going to submit to you that these words don't mean what you think they mean, and I'm going to give it to you by going into the word sacred. Because my sister and I were looking up something, and we said, you know, exactly what the hell do they mean by sacred? So we looked up sacred, and I'm going to look up sacred, and I'm going to give it to you right out of the book so you don't say I'm making it up. This is the 1828 American Dictionary of the English Language, by Noah Webster. And the word sacred, is a word that means, inside the brackets, okay, this is what's really important, in the brackets, it's from the French word sacre, from the Spanish and Italian and Portuguese word sacro, which is from the Latin sacer, so S-A-C-E-R, which means sacred, holy, cursed, damnable. That's D-A-M-N-A-B-L-E. So that which is holy and that which is sacred is that which is cursed and that which is damnable. Does everybody get that? Now, this is the so-called book that you all run around touting on, the holy, cursed, damnable, sacred Bible. That is promoted by the Holy Roman Catholic Church. But the so-called Jews are also followers of this Bible, but their interpretation they've compiled into several different books that they got these so-called scriptures out of. And one of the books that is the book that these people go by is this Talmud. And everybody better get real damn clear about this damn Talmud. That is one of the reasons why inside of both of those religions, actually all three of those religions, children get molested, sodomized, and raped on a regular basis because it is a part of the belief system. That is also why people get eaten, tortured, tormented. People are sacrificed so that people can drink their blood, because this is a part of what it's about. That's why the book is a damnable book and a cursed book. One of the reasons why this guy that you guys talk about so much, so-called Jesus, had a problem with the Pharisees and their hypocrisy and all of the blood rituals that they were performing for the god Ammon, and the Ammonites, which I was telling you guys before. These people are all about blood ritual and sacrifice. They are all about murder. They are all about burning people alive, burning people whole. That is the culture. That is the practice. Just because you don't know about it, just because you don't see it, just because you don't believe it, doesn't mean it's not taking place. And unfortunately, one of the things that they do and have done is they've gone around and gotten control of all of the major European countries and have put themselves strategically in a position where all of these countries, unfortunately including this one that has become a European country as far as the rulership that is, never mind who you see out there now as the president, this is still a European rulership, because the United States is really the military arm and bully for the European alliance, and the European alliance does what they're told to do by their head financiers, which are these inbred individuals that you guys are calling Ashkenazim, Jew, or Rothschild, Rockefeller, Schiff. These kind of people are all interbred, crossbred. And Rockefeller, for all you Eddie Bauer fans with your Eddie Bauer cars, that's them. Their name was Bauer, B-A-U-E-R, and they changed it to Rockefeller. Don't get mixed up about who you're dealing with here. And they're the same people that are over all these banks, including J.P. Morgan and Chase. Does anybody have a question before I go any further? Because I'm going to give them.
Do you want to go to the phone line? There's 4 callers.
Sure.
In the, okay.
We'll take all 4 of them. I'll fill the questions to the best of my ability.
832, you're on the air. 832.
Peace.
Peace. Hi.
Peace. How you doing?
Marvelous. How are you doing today? Thank you for your call.
Yes.
You have a question?
Well, actually, I have a comment. I was reading out of the Strong Concordance of the Bible, and it came from Strong LLD, and I was looking on page 89 when it was speaking about Ammon or Ammon, right? When it was saying that the tribal or interbred Ammon or the son of Lot, and the in the country, right? And so when I looked up Ammon or Amen, it was saying the hidden one. Yeah. So and then you had another one called and then you had you had another god by the name of Ammon or Ammon, which is spelled A-M-O-N. So that god is totally different from the ancient Kemetic god.
Actually, it is and it is not. You have to remember, see, and I always get this from people that are so pro-Kemet. You have to remember that Kemet, or what you call Egypt, was thoroughly overrun. And wait a minute, I took notes on what king let them in. I think his name was Psammetichus, P like Paul, S like Sam, A, M like money, M like money, E, T like Tom.
You must be talking about Khafaru.
Okay, well, all right.
Yeah, Khafaru. Khafaru was the one that actually lifted the immigration ban where he would let those Tamahus in. So they probably kidnapped the god and
Okay.
So, if somebody come in your house and steal it and still want to, like your jewelry, and use it to make a laser for evil, that's like you say it is and it isn't. Even with, all right, let me put it in this analogy. Said that the Europeans or the Pale Tamahus and them came into Kemet and took our deities and went up there and called, like Isis, they call her Dionysus or Aphrodite or Athena, you see, and they actually took the names from the ancient gods, but they did things like, what you say, sex and all that there, and doing all those negative things by hiding the true name of the deities from Kemet. So if they, even like today with our science, all right, that we say so-called, I don't say Moorish science, but I say the science of the Moors, all right? Now, like the language or being linguistic, they take the words and turn the meaning around, or even dealing with numerical value when they take the numbers and flip them around to do negative things, Be the positive and then the negative.
That's not quite accurate, but I do hear what you're saying.
So if somebody come and steal your name, which they can't do, which they say that name theft, and go run up a credit card on your name, that's not you. You see? So I would look at that as being a fraud.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate your comment.
Peace.
Do you want to go to the next caller?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Hold that call. I found the Ammon. It's AMMOWN from the Hebrew 5983, which comes from the Hebrew 5971. And that's in the Strong's Exhaustive Concordance. Go ahead. Bring in the caller.
575, you're on the air.
Peace, it's Brother Free from Chains, Brother Sanku. So my comment, or kind of like quasi-question comment, is, when you look at their damn sacred Bible or whatever, and in Genesis it says everybody was born from Adam and Eve, and then Adam and Eve had some children, and that's how humanity basically started. So, according to their Bible, humanity was started with incest. And there weren't, different races to begin with. We all came from Adam and Eve. So I wonder what Yaffa thought about that, seeing how she brought up the topic of inbreeding.
Well, thank you for the question. Adam and Eve were not the first people. There were people running around. And personally, I'm beginning to think, and I'm trying to narrow it down. One of the things that got so-called Adam and Eve kicked out of what is so-called the Garden of Eden, if you buy into the story, would either be the incest itself, sex with children, or sex with animals. One of those three things was the problem, and I'm still trying to get a narrow finger on that. It was either the incest that is so-called original sin, it was the sex with an animal or beast that was the so-called original sin, or was having sex with a child that was as an adult. That was the original sin. But I don't have my finger on it just yet. I will. I'm just finding a few words.
That's perfect though, right there, because that's based off of what they're saying. They committed incest in order to have children, for those children to procreate with anybody else, and there was no one else on the planet. You would have had to have sex with your mom and your dad and your brothers and sisters in order to procreate.
Right, but there were people on the planet. If there were not people on the planet, then how in the Cain? Hold up! Don't do that to me. When I'm responding to you, don't talk over me. I appreciate where you're coming from. I know you didn't mean anything by it, but I forgot what I was going to say now. Thank you for your call.
I'm sorry.
Your call. That's okay. Next caller.
720, you're on the air. 720?
Oh, okay, that's me. Sorry, I was waiting for you to do the last 4 digits. Okay,
Hi.
I have a... How you doing? I'm sorry. How you all doing? Good evening and all that. Okay, I have a statement, more like a statement now. It's about the impact. We were talking about Jewish people, and in fact, this happened this past Sunday. I was hanging out with a sister. You know, we had lunch, hung out, right, and we was driving down the street, and I made mention of this big dome they have on one of these streets with a Greek Orthodox church. She said, "Oh yeah, they're also the Jewish community over here." And I said, "What?" Right? She goes, "Yeah, the Jewish people. They're the chosen people, God's chosen people." And so I was like, "What? What do you mean by that?" She goes, "Yeah, because Jesus was Jewish." And so I didn't say it. The Bible says it. And I was just saying that what a strong impact that the Jewish people have put on this world right now.
Well, is that a question, or are you just commenting about what's going on in the community?
Yeah, I was just making a general statement. Yeah.
Well, there's a difference, and I'm still trying to see who's who, but I have determined that there's a distinct difference between being Jew or Jewish and being Judean. So I'm still trying to determine who is who. But as I said before, what a lot of people don't comprehend and don't really want to hear is that according to my research, and again, either it came out of the 1828 dictionary or it came out of the Strong's Concordance, the Random House College Dictionary, or it came out of my Columbia Encyclopedia, or some combination of the three. My research basically shows that the original people of the area that is called Canaan were Neanderthal type or Neanderthal-like people, which is probably why certain people want the area now, because it maybe it really is. It started out as their home. I'm not so sure.
And you know, and just basically, is that the Jewish people she's referring to is not the European Jewish people, the ones that the only way you could say that they're Jewish is by their name. If they told you their name, then oh yeah, you must be Jewish then. Not by the way they look, because they look like there's a regular white person on the street.
Exactly. And so-called white folks are getting beat up real bad because of things that these people are doing, because they look like. That's what I be trying to tell everybody, because people are like, oh, I even asked somebody on a radio show the other day, and people are like, oh, all Europeans. I'm like, no, all Europeans didn't come from the steppes of Russia. That's not accurate. When I say Europeans, I mean all pale-skinned people did not come from the steppes of Russia. You know what I'm saying? There are several other ways that some of these paler-skinned people came to be. They didn't all come out and start out as Neanderthals. But, you know, go ahead with your point, though. I hear you.
Well, thank you. I just want to make that point. I'm glad I got it off my chest, because I could never really tell anybody. Because when I heard her tell me that, I was like, oh, man, that just drove me nuts, you know.
They may be Judas. You know what I'm saying? They may be Judas, going into Judas Maccabeus or what have you. They may be Judas. Because, you know, that kind of gets back into the whole difference between the Pharisees and the Sadducees. You have the Sadducees, which were a sect of Jews that were walking around the so-called time of so-called Jesus.
Right.
And they were supposed to be the upper class that dwelled mostly in the cities. And from what I gather, they rejected everything that didn't come from the 5 books, you know, the Torah and, you know, their 5 books. They didn't believe in the resurrection. They didn't buy into immortality. They didn't buy into angels, demons. They weren't trying to hear none of that. But I'm still trying to figure out who was who on this thing, because the Pharisees were like the antithesis of them, and the Pharisees are the people that so-called Jesus was basically chewing out, you know, because of the crazy the nonsense that they were doing, the burning and the blood drinking and the eating children and the molesting of children and the sodomizing the children and this kind of business. 2 grown people can do what the hell they want to do, but when you're talking about children, now that is the damaging of an innocent, which causes a lot of damage for them basically throughout their whole life if they live through it. They become, for lack of better words, split personality types, Sybil types, Manchurian candidate types, or they wind up on drugs and alcohol and under the influence, which may or may not enable them to be good parents if they have children. And I'm saying all that to say these victims or victimizing these youth is a sin against society, which is an act of terror against Creator, because when you do something that's going to destroy creation, that's an affront to the Creator. And destroying children destroys societies, and that destroys Creator's creatures, which destroys Creator's creation, if that makes any sense. And all those religions are notorious for it, but people don't do the research, they don't look enough, they don't want to see. And you have to also understand and comprehend who controls the media that makes absolutely certain that certain information is not released to the public, because they control the media, and they determine what does and does not get put out. And if people find a bunch of dead baby bodies or a bunch of dead body parts or you know, whatever the case may be, if they find these ovens or whatever that the people are burning the children in, or this, that won't make the news. If it gets anywhere near the news, somebody's going to wind up dead or fired. And if it gets out, you'll never hear a follow-up about it again, because it slipped. It was just a slip. And thank you for your call. I appreciate it, unless you had another
thank you for the information. It's beautiful, beautiful information. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your support. And you said there were 4, so that would be one more.
Okay, yes, 3916, you're on the air.
Hotep. Great.
Hotep. My aunt Hotep.
Hotep.
Go ahead.
My brother, my name is Cosmos. Calling from Midwest, Atlanta, Illinois Republic. I heard you speaking on Amun. And first of all, when you speak about, there is a difference between Egypt, well, you mean, first of all, linguistics, which is the history of the origin of structure.
And timid, I know.
Of languages. But the point of the matter is, I'm going to say this. In ancient Egypt, I want to use Egypt because that's what it's a Greek terminology, what the Greeks called themselves, or the Hyksos, after they took over after Khufu with the immigration laws. But ancient Tamaray, which is a difference. There were many different deities and female deities that represented many different facets of life. So when you speak of Amun, he's one of the highest deities, and originally he became a deity of agriculture and responsibility for crops and prosperity. And the thing is, this is pre-dynastic times. And like the caller earlier, I think my brother mentioned, when we allow the immigration laws to be lifted and we start educating them in our universities, that knowledge was the Greeks. They took that knowledge and also adopted it into their own societies and things, and the sciences, and learned from our sciences, and they changed it to suit their culture. We need to remember that, and that's what I want to speak on. And as far as dealing with Jew, there's no such thing as Jew because there's no J in Aramaic Hebrew. Okay, they are infiltrators. It's only tribe of Yahuda originally. Okay, and the thing about that is, that's where people go around and say Jew-ish or like Jew-ish with the ish, meaning as like unto. Like I said, there's no such thing as Jewish.
And your question is?
Made up. No, I said I made a comment. I didn't say I was making a question.
Okay.
And that's what I want to comment on. And understand, as far as you speaking on Amun, how it has, unfortunately, through Europeans, has been, the name has been defiled. And on that, I say peace.
Peace. Thank you for your call and for your comment.
You have another caller, Supernova 64.
Bring it in. Is that a call? Was that a call?
Yes, that's a call.
Okay,
I'll shut it off. I don't. No, that's a call. I guess somebody's playing around on Skype.
That's just somebody that's angry about something they hear me saying about their religion or about their belief or about their perspective of history or whatever the case may be. This is not necessarily for everyone. Some people are more evolved than others, and we have a lot of people that have belief systems that they refuse to hear beyond anything. And once you say something that is not conducive to their belief or their prophet or their leader or their church or their temple or their ideology about history or race or color or culture, they can't hear anything past that, So,
yeah, that's the last call.
Thank you for your call. I don't know what that was, but we appreciate it. Anyhow, the point I'm trying to make is this, and that is that these individuals have gotten a massive grip on society, and they are deliberately and purposefully attempting to lead everyone astray by choice away from Creator. Now, when you start tampering with children and or animals, that's not by choice because they, in my personal perspective, don't have enough insight and have not evolved enough to make a well-thought-out choice about participating in any kind of act with you. I don't care if they're 15. A lot of people at 15 are mentally still 12. Some people at 21 are still mentally 17. Some people at 21 are mentally 29. So I think it's on a case-by-case basis. But when you're talking 1 day old, 3 days old, 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old, 6, 7, 8, 9, these are people that are too young to make any decision whatsoever about being involved in any situation with you. And a lot of times the adults will do things like create these children that I speak of that are their victims with aberrant behavior because it started so young. And a lot of these children, these are their real parents. Some of them, they are adoptive parents, and as far as the child knows, this is their real parent who's the only parent they ever knew. Some children don't even know that they are adopted, unless you're dealing with a situation, well, it's obvious that you're not my father. You're blonde and blue, and I'm melanin rich and nappy, or whatever the case may be. But when you do these things to children, some of whom are adopted, some of whom their real parent died, and you're the step-parent that took over, or whatever the deal is, you cause these children with this aberrant behavior at times when you release them amongst other children, because some of these adults, they'll do it to their children because they're trying to create it. They have an agenda, and they will send the child out into the world. And parents, because we don't even know that this type of behavior goes on, we cannot even believe it, we can't fathom it because it would never enter our realm of thinking. When our children go out amongst other children to a party or to school or to sleepovers, and I never allowed my child at sleepovers, to these types of things, you have no idea what they're being exposed to or what's going on, and they may be somewhere in the back playing with a child that is well more, they might be a 5-year-old child that's been damaged that starts to inflict this type of behavior on your child. And then you're like, okay, well, where'd you get that from? You don't even know where your children are getting some of this behavior. Sometimes it's somebody that is an adult, and frequently it's someone that's their own age. Or they're playing with a little child their age. Mom, can I go to so-and-so's house? Sure, baby, go on. Just be back by whatever time, or I'll come pick you up in a however long. And then your child goes over to the house with a child that's their age, and that child has an older brother or older sister or a pervert parent that starts inflicting damage. And that is an affront to Creator and creation, because that starts infecting everybody, because they start coming out amongst the rest of us with these behaviors that are not normal for the people that they're coming into the system with, if that makes any sense to anyone. Because it is not acceptable to have sex with a child or with an animal, or to torture children mercilessly for extended periods of time at all, actually. But these people do this for extended periods of time, you know. And some of the things they do I know about, I've researched, I've read, I've seen. I cannot and would not even begin to speak on it over the air because I don't know who's listening. Somebody's child could be listening. But some of the things they do, you could not even begin to imagine. And a lot of that behavior is being brought to you by people that you think are one thing and they're something else. Because it's like for the biblically inclined so-called Jesus said, when people came to him and I think Satan was in the midst or whatever, he's in the midst. He looks like everybody else. But he stood out to your dude Jesus, and it's like, okay, and why are you here? What's up with you? Oh, I'm just going to and fro kind of thing. But he came in the midst of the people looking like everybody else. And it's getting to the point where these demons in our midst that are pushing demonocracy are beginning to look like us because these people have expanded around the globe and acquired children that look like us, and they've made them something other than what they should be by nature. Some people can live through this and then come out and be some sort of damage but still function to a certain extent, usually with some sort of smoking habit or drinking habit or drugging habit. Very few can get out without having some kind of drama. It's not anything other than an eating disorder. They usually have something going on with them because of the damage that has been done to them. So I'm saying be aware. The children that are being stolen in Haiti, they're not the last, but they're amongst the last that you're seeing. This was done in what you guys call Africa, Egypt, Sudan, America, India. You know, this has been done all over the world where people go. And they started with people that look like them because these people that look like them honestly do believe or thought that these people were them. And they've been sent by this Red Shield House to go around the globe and create war and destruction and dissension and division and derision. And they always plant disruptors in the midst of everybody to make sure that people don't come together. Because if the people ever come together, this small inbred tribe of people can be booted out on their little inbred asses. Is there a question?
Somebody asked a question about the devil dethroned. Who was the author of the book?
It's Lucifer dethroned, and
okay.
Oh God, the book. Now, if I get up, I'm going to probably scatter more paperwork. It's called Lucifer Dethroned,
okay.
And I can't think of who it's by. But this guy is talking about people needing to come back to Christianity to find their way out of this type of behavior. But what he doesn't comprehend is these entities have thoroughly infiltrated what you're currently calling so-called Christianity, you know, which the whole concept originated with melanin-rich people. I'm not going to say so much our people because I'm still, unlike most people that are Afrocentric and Egypt-centric, I'm an Americanist. So I've done enough research to comprehend the differences. I am fully well aware that the people of what is currently identified as Egypt came over here, and I don't know if they were running from the inbreds or the foreigners or whatever the case may be, but they wound up here south of the border, setting up the first Egypt south of the border, naming this Tamari south of the border. When they arrived, they found us here. We were already here. And one of the things that they were involved in was this Aman ritual stuff that they didn't want the people they found here to know about. I don't know. Did I even answer the question? Or did somebody ask? Oh, yeah, they asked about Lucifer dethroned. Girl.
Somebody put the link in the chat room.
What kind
of link? On Amazon.
Oh, for the book?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm on some whole other, not following. Anyhow, these individuals came over here, and there's a string of last names that I want people to know about because a lot of these are the people we're talking about. Rockefeller, Mathers, and isn't Eminem a Mather? Isn't his last name Mathers? I forget what his name is. But a lot of the people that you see getting promoted, they may not even know that they are a part of a particular bloodline for whatever reason. But they start getting raised up, and you only know that you're looking at this bloodline because you know what the names are. And a brother called in earlier saying something about, the people are Jews by their names. It's gotten to the point where you really don't always know that they're so-called Jews by their name, because you wouldn't know that Rivera, which is Geraldo Rivera, would be a so-called Jew by his name. Frequently, these individuals came here, and one of the first things they did was change their name. But Rockefeller, Mathers, Rothschild, Harriman, Schiff, Sassoon, like Vidal Sassoon for the hair product, Mazzini, Belmont, which used to be known as Schoenberg. They're going by Belmont. We got Marx. And what was that guy? I forget his name. He was so-called major psychologist, that Freud. Freud is an individual. He's one of these people that I'm talking about that are very dangerous by nature. And if you there's a video out, DVD called Psychiatry. It's a documentary. And they say in there, basically, that our people aren't even from here. But you'll miss it, though, if you're not looking. He's the same cat that was promoting whatever his agenda was about people's mental states. And he's considered a scholar, but at the same time, he felt that incest and sex with children was normal. And for them, it is normal. So I'm saying to you, when you start talking about people, you want to know who you're talking to. Rhodes, when they talk about the Rhodes scholars, Drexel, Carnegie, Morgan, Chase, because they're two different guys, because Solomon P. Chase, I think, was the treasurer, secretary for the Treasury or something. I'm thinking under George Washington or one of these presidents. He was one of the first treasurers, and now he has a whole bank after him. But these people came in quick and got on here. Wise is one of the names, and there's a cat out named Timothy Wise. He may or may not know that he's a part of the bloodline, even though he knows he's a Jew. He may or may not know, or maybe he's doing what he's supposed to do. I don't know. Or maybe he's someone who's trying to step away from the nonsense. But even he tells melanin-rich people, whenever someone so-called white comes to you with anything, you're supposed to always be suspicious. You have to make them prove themselves. And he may not even know what I'm thinking, which is you don't know who they are. They may or may not be who they appear to be. But anyway, one of the things that took place back in the day was the individuals that, and matter of fact, the Rothschild family, they're the ones that prompted England to launch war in America. Not once, but more than once. And I submit to you that they're probably behind all of the wars that we're dealing with even to this day. The ones that the skirmishes we're having. They're the same family that took out the Tsar of Russia. They're the same family that got control of the Roman Catholic Church. It's the same inbred family that got control of the Bank of England. And, these are the entities that are controlling everybody else around here. And a lot of these fights and whatever's going on in Egypt, I submit to you that those people are behind that too, the riots and whatever. Most of the people they show on the screen look like these people we're talking about. You can't tell what their ethnic stock or nationality is. And whoever it is that they're putting in the seat of so-called power to replace the cat that just stepped down, and I can't think of what his name is either off the top of my head, he looks like one of these bloodline inbred stock to me. He and the other guy that they were considering, there were two people that they were talking about putting in there. But in 1836, President Andrew Jackson was the first and only president to get those people up out of the banking system for the United States. The Rothschilds had set up the first bank of the United States. They had set up the second bank of the United States. And he got them out of here on the second bank in 1836. And it took them a while, and I think they had to cause a war to do it. But eventually, they made an assassin, they attempted to kill him. But obviously this cat was protected because this dude had 2 guns, and neither one of these guns fired properly to even take the dude out. But I think that's why now when they try to kill these guys, they have more than one shooter all the time to make sure that doesn't happen again. But in 1913, the Rothschilds set up the third Central Bank of America, which you all know as the Federal Reserve banking system. And right now, they're in the process of toppling this because they want to overthrow every government in the world so that they can set up the one central government and be in charge of it. Now, these are the same people that the Europeans ran away from, but they didn't know that they were running from them. And because they fell for the black-white skin color game and issue, they were so busy watching us that they didn't watch these people that they need to watch. And now the people that they have run from have strategically positioned themselves back over them again. And these are the people that were raping, molesting them, sodomizing them, eating their children, committing all types of rituals, burning people in the public square. They would do this type of thing, impaling people because there's something purely demonic. But if you inbreed too long, you will become purely demonic, or at the very least, you will become very physically ill, where you're going to either be physically not fully functional or you're going to be mentally not fully functional. Something is going to be wrong if you keep inbreeding via incest too long and too close. I think in 1836, Andrew Jackson finally finished paying the final installment, and he is the only president to date that got rid of the national debt. No other president to date has been able to do it. And what they did is they strategically put their people back in places of power so they could get back in the door. And now their whole agenda is that so-called United States is supposed to be colonial forever. They want the whole planet to be colonial forever and under their rule. But these are the people that think that if you get married, because this was them back in the day, I'm the king, an inbred crazy person at that. You can see a lot of this nonsense on the X-ray movie Caligula. There's also another movie that's not about the king thing, but it's a movie called The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. You guys need to see that movie. It's about a European female that was being raped and molested by her father and brother, and she wound up becoming quite the killer. But she was after them. And see, this is what they're not realizing. Some of the people are going to wake up about who they are and come after their asses. But these same kings felt like, oh, you guys just got married today and you're both virgins? Well, as the king, I have the right to have sex with your wife first, and I have the right to have sex with you first, so that before you have your marriage bed, I have the right to break both of your virginity. So if people don't comprehend what they ran away from Europe to get away from, even though these inbred people were amongst them, then they're just, like I said before, people that don't know history are going to repeat it. And they're going to bring everybody else into it because they got stuck on what they thought was, oh, I'm white and I'm better than you. Well, no, you're not white and better than me. You're what you think is white, and you've been told by the people that want to get control of you again that you're better than me, so you can keep focusing your energy on me while you're looking at me in the front, they're shoving a pole up the back. Does anybody have a question about anything I'm saying so far? Okay, fine. Now, these are the same people who, and, you know, China is in bed with them now. I'm wondering if they've forgotten history, because these are the same people that dumped all the opium in China. The Rothschilds were behind that. And when Emperor Dao Guang, and I can't pronounce his name correctly, it's spelled Daoguang, when that emperor realized that entirely too much of his population was strung out on drugs, like a lot of people around the world now, because they're behind the drug trade, too, all over the planet. And a lot of people keep pushing it and helping them sell it because, again, by choice, you are misled. And they mislead you by getting you to do things, and then they have something over you that they can blackmail you with, or they mislead you by waving Federal Reserve notes that you think are money, wealth, and power, or position and status in front of you, and you will sell your mother and your daughter and anybody else down the river chasing what you think is money, so that they cannot be held accountable when they come before a creator, because it's like, hey, man, they did it on their own. They did it because they wanted to. We didn't put a gun to their head, even though it's getting to the point in many instances they do put guns to people's heads. But a lot of times people do what they want to do. But anyway, when this particular emperor realized that so much of his population was strung out on drugs, he took action to stop it, and he had all the opium seized in his country, or at least the majority of it, and dumped it all into the river because he couldn't tolerate this country full of opium addicts. And as a result, the Rothschilds got Great Britain to go and retaliate because he dumped their drugs. You know, so whenever people are talking about these cartels coming across the South American border, coming through Mexico, they're working for these people. And they're going to come through here and do what they want to do, and it's going to happen unless people wake up and start seeing what they see and knowing what they're looking at. And people spend so much time tripping on skin color that they don't know when they're looking at a demon in the mist despite the color. Usually the person making the most noise, creating the most dissension, is the demon in the mist. They're the ones that are always there, and they're strategically placed there to do what they do. They're the same people that look like everybody else that incited the South to attempt to separate from the North so that they could create this division and get control of everything and bring the bank back in. People don't know how to sit back and listen first and pay attention and think first. They're too reactionary. You know, people get emotional all the time about things that don't make any sense. But they got Great Britain to retaliate and then had the nerve to compel the emperor to pay a certain type of restitution, kind of like what they did with the brothers and sisters in Haiti. You come into their land and you enslave them and they kick your royal butt or whatever it is and they run you out of their land, and you have the gall to turn around and tell them they owe you money because they chose not to be enslaved by you, and you make them pay you restitution when you should be paying them restitution. Haiti has been kept in poverty because for all of these years they have been paying restitution to people because they decided they weren't going to be enslaved, and they're the only country on this coast or this side of the world that got their liberation on their own. And for winning their liberation from slavery and saying we're not going to be slaves, they were made to pay the people back that were trying to oppress them. There's something wrong with this picture. And these very same people now have got their foot so deep in Haiti that it makes no sense to me. And it all started because of a so-called earthquake. And it's like, oh, yeah, we're here making a humanitarian effort. And now the people of Haiti are under a military occupation with a bunch of people that are killing them off, murdering them, and trying to enslave them yet again. Now, for you individuals that are in the NAACP, you already know that it was so-called Ashkenazi Jews that set that up. But one of the reasons they set it up was to create racial strife. Not that there wasn't enough racial strife already. But, you know, and I'm starting to wonder how many of these lynch raids and let's cook them and hang them from a tree raids were prompted by these very inbred people that I'm talking about that were agents, and other people just, you know, it sounds good, looks good, and I'm white, let's go, yeehaw, you know, because they're not thinking a thing through, but they're being misled also. So if you don't think a thing through, it's kind of like the alpha male syndrome. You have what they classify as an alpha male, which is usually nothing more than a wuss puss that was either beat or molested or abused or misused or belittled by his father or his mother or whomever. So he's at home whimpering and crying like a baby half the time, or, you know, beating up on his little brother and sister or kicking the dog, or he comes out in the world and kicks you, and then becomes law enforcement with a gun and a badge because they have the right now, because after all, I have a gun and a badge, so I have the right to be an alpha male. These are the same people that will lead gang rapes and incite all the other men who, in any other situation, would think more clearly than to succumb to that kind of nonsense. But because they're being misled and they're following some train, off they go down the road to hell. And a lot of the time, when it's all said and done, if a guy stands there, no matter what his race, whatever, no matter what group this is, if he stands there and comes to his senses and, well, wait a minute, nah, man, what are we doing? He can find himself the victim of some nonsense at the hands or under the incitation and direction of an alpha male. These guys are a problem, and this whole nonsense is all about this patriarchal society business. These are the cats that think it's okay to plop these little wags in between the legs into anything, anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's a dog, a goat, a sheep, a horse, an infant, a boy, a man. It doesn't matter to them. They just want to stick this thing someplace. And because they have that mentality, they subjugate children and women first in their own communities. Then they come out and they subjugate people based on some kind of racial concept of skin color. Then they start doing that. And before you know it, people are on a whole nother agenda, following people that have something wrong with them because they don't take the time to think for themselves. They just get misled and led astray by demons of the demonocracy. Does anybody have a question, since we only have 10 minutes left?
There's no questions so far.
Okay, perfect. But anyway, as I was saying, these cats, and I had the names of the people that founded it, they are Ashkenaz Jews, and they set up the NAACP. And it was some years before, I forget this cat's name, Benjamin something. I want to say Hooks, but that's probably not correct, became the president of the NAACP. But even with that, they still had a whole board of directors that was what you currently call Jew or Judas. You know what I'm saying? And because people don't read and know what they're looking at, they can't keep up. Now, what we're dealing with now is I don't want to use the word unholy alliance, but some kind of strange alliance between Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. They're all intertwined, and they're all being headed up at the very, very top by these people that have a whole nother agenda about world domination and world destruction, because that's how they get off. They get a thrill on inflicting pain and damage to other people. That is fun for them. And if you have any sanity at all and it's not fun for you, then you need to wake up and get a clue and step away from it. The only way that we're going to be able to resuscitate America and stand her back on her feet is by knowing how this mess got to the point that it is and where it started. And it started way back. There's a book called, and it was brought to my attention by Lady Ma'at, because, you know, she does what a student should do. When I say things, rather than arguing and disagreeing with what I'm saying to her, she'll go and try to go, you know, let me look into that and see if there's anything out there about that. When I gave the terminology last week about the synagogue of Satan, she just went and did like a dog pile search, because she doesn't really use Google. She did a dog pile search and she typed up synagogue of Satan, and a book came up called The Synagogue of Satan. And I suggest that everybody that is listening to this show, I don't care what your age is, I don't care what your gender is, I don't care what your employment status is, money, no money, big to do, little to do, whatever it is you think you are, black, white, green, purple, if you think you're a Jew or a Christian or a Muslim or an Egyptian or whatever the case may be, go online. There's a website called IamTheWitness.com. You can go online and read the entire book from cover to cover, and it's called The Synagogue of Satan. And the dude that wrote that book, you cannot get any clearer than that. His name is Andrew Carrington Hitchcock, and it's called The Synagogue of Satan, The French Connection. Actually, there's several connections, but y'all need to read that. By the time you read that book from beginning to end, you'll know where the problem is. And you won't have to keep sitting up here arguing with me and disagreeing with me and thinking that I'm some kind of crazy quack because I'm telling you things that you don't know anything about. Now, he's not going to cover every little detail, but he definitely covers enough of the details to get you on your way to finding how to resolve this mess. Does anybody else have a question?
No, not yet.
Okay, so hopefully I've brought that stuff up because I know after William of Orange went there, he was really the downfall of them Anglican people, and he brought these people in that were supposed to have never come back, and there's a reason why they didn't want them to come back. I'm not sure what all the reasons are, even though I have a real good idea what it is. These are people that know where their children are disappearing to. These are people that know that where a lot of these babies on the milk carton are going. But they're not telling you guys because their thing is, well, it ain't our job to tell them. It ain't our job to wake them up. Because they're still trying to figure out how to get from under them and at the same time stay on top of us. But it can't happen like that. It won't work that way. As long as they try to do that, we're all going to be in trouble. The Parliament, once William of Orange got seated, Parliament forbid any more Catholic monarchs from ever sitting on the throne. Now, that's interesting that if the Catholics are not there and the so-called Jews, or what you're calling Judas or Ashkenaz or Khazars, whatever you guys want to call them, if they're sitting over the banks and monies of England, and they're sitting over the banks and monies of Rome and the Roman Catholic Church, then who's doing what? You got the Roman Church, the Anglican Church, and this so-called Judaism nonsense all tied up. They're all tied together, and they're misruling the whole planet. And the United Nations is a part of that. A lot of people are thinking that they can get their freedom and liberation through these different declarations under the United Nations. And I'm telling you, it's a trick and it's a trap. Based on my research, that stuff all goes hand in hand, and they all work together. Now, you can use it for now, do the best you can, but understand and comprehend that it is not what you think it is. These same people set that up. These same people, it was England that helped set up the State of Israel over in Palestine, and I don't know how many of you are aware of the fact that prior to setting them up in Palestine, the initial agenda was to set up the State of Israel in Uganda. But the Jews were like, no. What you guys call Jews were like, no, we want Palestine. And based on my research about who was over there in the first place, it kind of makes sense. Because I'm starting to wonder if these people that we're talking about are inbred, melanin-rich people, or if they are some sort of a hybrid cross between us or somebody else and these Neanderthals. Because contrary to popular belief, all pale-skinned people are not necessarily having their origins from no Neanderthals. Some of them sit out as mutants of nature. Nature, on a rare occurrence, spits them out. Some of them are the result of melanin-rich people that also practice inbreeding, like a lot of my people want to swear them down. We don't do. I'm submitting to you, yes, some of us have done it. And there are people that are steady trying to say that the first originators and our first parents were Enlil and Enki, sister and brothers, and they were incested. Well, you know, if I have my consort, or what you call husband, and I say to you, hey, how you doing? I want you to meet my husband, brother so-and-so, that don't make him my brother. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you tuning in. I'll be here next week.